Hello, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This is where you get everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock, including news of a clear shift in investor interest in agriculture and food supply chains. But first, American consumer prices recorded their largest increase in more than a year in May, rising 2.1% from the same month a year ago, as costs for a range of goods and services rose, and likely easing any concerns the Federal Reserve may have had that inflation was running too low. US housing starts and building permits both came in much weaker than expected. Building permits were almost 2% below May a year ago, but the housing starts were more than 9% above the year ago data. Argentina has refused to accept the US court judgment in the case of the holdout bondholders. The scene is now set for an ugly default and wider implications. In Europe, rebels or other forces have blown up one of the two gas pipelines that flow through the Ukraine, supplying Europe. In China, there's more news that parts of their housing market are tanking. Sales of residences in Beijing slumped an amazing 35% in this year's January to May period compared with the same period a year ago. Both volumes and prices are falling. Following on from our item yesterday that Grand Farm is buying up sheep meat capacity, today the Chinese leadership has signalled that its sovereign wealth fund is shifting its focus to investment in agriculture. This will have deep implications for pricing of agricultural assets worldwide. For a start, there are clear signs private equity firms are already shifting their focus the same way, seeing the Chinese as something of a honeypot. Overnight, the latest dairy auction was held, and that had mixed results. Overall prices in US dollars were up 0.9%, the first rise in 9 auctions. But in New Zealand dollars, prices were down 1.75%. There was a good sign, though, that whole milk powder prices rose by 2.4%, its largest rise this year. Cheese also gained and is up more than 10% in the past 2 auctions. In New York, yields on US Treasury 10-year bonds jumped to 2.64% today following the US inflation data. Gold and oil are both down on US benchmarks, but the oil price is up slightly on the Brent and Dubai benchmarks. China is concerned about the rise in the oil price. On the exchange rate, the New Zealand dollar starts today at about the same level as been for the past 4 days, although it is noticeably higher against the Aussie. It is at 86.5 US cents, 92.7 Aussie cents, and the TWI is at 80.7. I'm David Chaston. That was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.